I'm Amanda, 28, and I'll never forget the sound of pages being torn one by one. 273 pages. 2 years of late-night work throughout high school and my gap years. My first complete manuscript. My mother destroyed it right in front of me while telling me my dream of becoming a writer was a pathetic joke. It happened when I told her I wanted to study literature in college, not law as she had planned. She had saved $87,000 for my education, money she refused to give me in that moment. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. My face remained still, while my heart shattered into pieces smaller than the scraps of my dreams scattered across the floor. Several years later, I fulfilled my promise to myself. I published my first book, and ultimately made her eat every single word. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had someone crush your dreams. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Growing up in our suburban Boston home, all I ever wanted was to be a writer. My room was stacked with journals filled with stories that took me away from reality. I started when I was 8, creating worlds where people were valued for who they truly were. Mom never understood. She was Martha Preston, top real estate agent with a perfect family facade to maintain. "Writers don't pay bills, Amanda," she'd say whenever she caught me writing. "Lawyers do." That day, I had just been accepted to Boston University with a partial scholarship for their literature program. I was ecstatic. 20 years old and finally ready to pursue my passion after taking 2 gap years working at a local bookstore to save money. Mom had other plans. "I didn't pay for private school for 18 years for you to waste your life on fiction," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I placed my manuscript on the kitchen table. I wrote this during my gap years, building on ideas I started in high school. Professor Wilson from BU already reviewed it and said it shows promise. She barely glanced at it. "Promise doesn't pay student loans. The scholarship covers half, and I've saved almost $12,000. Your father and I set aside money for a proper education. Law, medicine, business, not this." She picked up my manuscript. My baby. 2 years of work. I'll never forget her expression. Not anger, but something worse. Dismissal. "Mom, please don't." The first rip sliced through me like a physical pain. Page after page, shredded between manicured fingers. My characters, my world, destroyed as easily as tissue paper. "This little hobby of yours? It's a pathetic joke. Time to grow up." I stood there, frozen. Each tear in the paper echoed in my chest. When you're ready to be serious about your future, the money is there for law school, not for this nonsense. The irony? She'd just given me the best writing material of my life. Authentic pain. "I understand," I said, voice steady despite the hurricane inside me. I bent down, picked up a single torn page, and slipped it into my pocket. Not as a reminder of defeat, but as a promise. She thought my story was finished. It was just beginning. I cleaned up the mess, her mess, as she watched with satisfaction. Little did she know I had already backed up my manuscript digitally. Yeah, even pathetic dreamers know how technology works. Surprise, Mom. That night, I didn't cry. I planned, applied to every scholarship I could find, researched student loans, mapped out a future my mother couldn't tear apart. I knew the path would be harder without their money, but some things are worth the struggle. And spite? Spite is one hell of a motivator. Growing up, I was constantly compared to my younger brother, Thomas. While I needed perfect grades, he was celebrated for pulling C+. When I earned a partial scholarship to the state college, my parents barely noticed. When Thomas made the high school football team, they threw a surprise party. The difference in treatment was clear as vodka, but twice as bitter. "Thomas will be a lawyer like your father," my mother would say proudly, even when he showed zero interest in studying. My father, Robert, was a renowned corporate attorney, always traveling, always in important meetings, always absent during crucial moments of my life. He outsourced all family decisions to my mother, preferring to stay away from domestic issues, as he called them. I, on the other hand, had been writing stories since I was 8, notebooks filled with worlds I created. But to my mother, this was just a silly hobby. "Did you see Thomas's touchdown last weekend?" my father would ask during our rare family dinners, not bothering to ask about my perfect SAT scores or the short story contest I'd won. I smiled and passed the potatoes. "It was great, Dad." My mother would beam at Thomas. "Coach says he might get a sports scholarship." "That's wonderful," I'd say, the words practiced and hollow. At night, I'd write in my journal about families who supported each other equally. Pure fiction, apparently. High school graduation came. I was valedictorian. My parents showed up, but left immediately after my speech to attend Thomas's baseball game. They didn't even hear me thank my English teacher, the only adult who encouraged my writing. "Sorry, honey, but Thomas needs us in the stands," Mom said, already heading for the exit. "Big Scout's there today." I stood alone in my cap and gown while other families took photos and celebrated. Mrs. Jenkins, my English teacher, approached me. That was a beautiful speech, Amanda. Thanks. I twisted the tassel on my cap. I guess my parents had somewhere more important to be. She squeezed my shoulder. Their loss. You're going to do amazing things. I wanted to believe her. During my 2 gap years, I worked at Brookline Books by day and wrote by night. The manuscript grew page by page, a story about a girl who discovers magical worlds inside antique books. I poured everything into it. My hopes, my loneliness, my desire for escape. My boss, Eleanor, read chapters as I finished them. This has something special, Amanda. Real heart. Meanwhile, Thomas flunked 2 classes but was still celebrated when he got accepted to Dad's alma mater on a legacy admission. They took him out to Morton's Steakhouse. I found out via my mother's Facebook post. So proud of our future lawyer. Arsh blessed mom. I got a half-eaten cake in the fridge with a post-it. Congrats on the bookstore promotion. It was the wrong promotion. I'd been accepted to BU's literature program, not promoted at the bookstore. They hadn't even remembered what I'd told them the week before. You should say something, Eleanor suggested when I showed up to work looking defeated. What's the point? I arranged new releases on the display table. They've already decided who the star of the family is. And who decided you can't shine anyway? Her words stayed with me. I finished my manuscript that night, typing the final sentence at 3:47 a.m. 273 pages of pure determination. I printed it the next day at the bookstore, spent $27 on a nice binder, and brought it home to show my parents. That's when my mother ripped it apart page by page. That's when I finally understood. I would never be enough for them. That's when everything changed. Even after my mother destroyed my manuscript and refused to finance my literature degree, I continued trying to win my family's approval. I visited them every Sunday, brought small gifts on special occasions, helped my mother with grocery shopping, taught my father how to use his computer on the rare occasions he was home. For 4 years, I woke up at 5 a.m. to study, worked as a barista in the afternoons, freelanced writing commercial scripts on weekends, and picked up online editing jobs whenever I could. I sent birthday cards, called on holidays, and ignored the snide comments about my career choice. When are you going to get a real job? My mother would ask every time we saw each other. And I would smile, swallow my pride, and show her my excellent grades, which she barely glanced at. My father would just nod, check his watch, and return to his office. I maintained this routine through 4 grueling years of college, working as a barista while juggling freelance copywriting and online content editing, writing between shifts during lunch breaks on the bus, sleeping 4 hours a night, and surviving on instant ramen and coffee so bitter it could make a lemon pucker. All while watching Thomas drop out of 2 law schools, with my parents making excuses for him each time. Law school is very demanding, my mother would say. Thomas just needs to find the right fit. The right fit apparently included a new car after each failure, bought with my education money. I need transportation to interviews, he'd tell me, keys to his latest BMW dangling from his fingers. Meanwhile, I rode a bike with a broken gear shift through Boston winters. Professor Martinez, my thesis advisor, noticed the bags under my eyes one day. Amanda, are you getting enough rest? I laughed. Rest is for the tenured. She didn't smile back. Your writing shows promise, but you're burning out. I'm fine, I insisted. The same lie I told everyone. She looked at me over her reading glasses. You know, success is the best revenge. Who said anything about revenge? Your stories do. Every protagonist fighting for recognition against impossible odds. That's not coincidence. I stared at the manuscript on her desk. My thesis project. A novel about a young woman whose magical abilities are dismissed by her family until she saves them all. It's just fiction, I mumbled. Fiction comes from somewhere real, Amanda. That night, I reread my novel. Professor Martinez was right. Every story I'd written was about proving worth, seeking validation, fighting for a place. I was writing my own struggle over and over. Then came the email that changed everything. The University Literary Award, the most prestigious honor for graduating seniors. My novel had won. With shaking hands, I called my parents. Mom, I won the University Literary Award. They're publishing my thesis novel in their press. Silence then. That's nice, dear. Did you hear Thomas got an interview at Jacobson and Meyer? Your father's golf buddy pulled some strings. I closed my eyes. Counted to 10. It's a big deal, Mom. Only 1 student wins each year. Well, congratulations. Will there be any money with this award? You know, real income? A small stipend and publication, I said, my voice growing quieter. Well, that's something, I suppose. Oh, Thomas just walked in. Do you want to hear about his interview? I hung up, staring at the award notification email. The university would host a reception, Black tie, press would be there. Local literary figures. I sent formal invitations to my parents and Thomas, handwritten on cream cardstock. Spent $178 I couldn't afford on special stationery. They never RSVP'd. I called a week before the event. My mother answered on the fourth ring. Oh, the award thing? I thought that was just a school function. It's the biggest literary award at the university, Mom. Well, we already have plans that weekend. Your cousin Jennifer's baby shower, remember? I didn't remember, because no one had told me. I see. Is Dad there? He's preparing for the Jensen case. Very important clients. Can't be disturbed. Of course. I attended the reception alone, wore a dress I found at Goodwill and altered myself, smiled for photos, shook hands with the dean, accepted the crystal trophy with grace. Where's your family? Professor Martinez asked during the reception. They couldn't make it, I said, the practiced excuse feeling hollow. She looked at me for a long moment. Their loss, Amanda. This is exceptional work. After the ceremony, I took the bus home, trophy wrapped in my scarf to protect it from the rain. In my tiny studio apartment, I placed it on my makeshift desk, a door balanced on 2 crates. No congratulatory calls came, no text messages, nothing. I stared at my phone until 2 a.m., then turned it off. That night, I made a decision. I would stop waiting for approval that would never come. Have you ever achieved something significant only to have the people who should care the most completely dismiss it? Let me know in the comments if you can relate. 3 months before my graduation, I sent invitations to my entire family. I had saved for months to buy beautiful, personalized invitations. The night before the ceremony, I called to confirm everyone would attend. Oh, I forgot to tell you, said my mother. We're going to Florida to visit your aunt. Thomas has a golf tournament there. I remained silent for a few seconds, trying to process. But it's my graduation. You've known about this for months. My mother sighed as if I were being irrational. Amanda, it's just a graduation, and it's not like it's in medicine or law. I asked if I could speak with my father. He's on an important call with clients in Japan. He can't be interrupted. That night, I received a short email from him. Sorry I can't attend. Important case closing. Congratulations on your graduation. He didn't even call me. An hour later, to my surprise, Thomas called. Hey, Amanda, I'm sorry about your graduation. This golf tournament is important for the connections Dad wants me to make. I tried not to show my hurt. It's okay, Thomas, I understand. He laughed carelessly. Besides, I need to buy a new car with the money Mom transferred to my account. You know, that $87,000 she saved for our college? She said you didn't need your share anymore since you managed on your own. My heart stopped. $87,000 for someone who could barely pass basic subjects, while I worked 3 jobs to pay for my college. She gave you my education money? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Half of it was always mine, Thomas said, missing the point entirely. But yeah, she transferred it all when you decided to do that writing thing instead of law school. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. I see. Don't be mad, sis. It's not like you need it now, right? You're almost done with school. Almost done with $42,000 in student loans. Almost done with working double shifts at the coffee shop, writing ad copy until 2 a.m., and editing online articles between classes. Almost done with selling plasma twice a month to make rent. Right, I said. I don't need it. Cool. So you're not coming to Florida either, huh? No, Thomas, I'll be at my graduation. Alone. He paused. That sucks. But hey, I'll bring you a souvenir or something. I hung up and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. My tiny apartment suddenly felt suffocating. 4 years of sacrifice. And my family couldn't spare one day. 4 years of struggle. And my brother got handed my future on a silver platter. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't forget to send us photos from graduation. I threw my phone across the room. The next morning, I found an email from Professor Martinez. Amanda, I've submitted your thesis novel to Ashton Publishing House. My former student works there as an editor. No promises, but your work deserves to be read. See you at graduation. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope that had nothing to do with my family's approval. I picked up my phone from where it had landed under my desk. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I scrolled through my contacts to my mother's number, my thumb hovering over the call button. Instead, I texted, I won't be sending photos. I'll be too busy starting my life without you in it. Then I blocked her number. It was petty. It was dramatic. It was also the first time I'd stood up for myself in 22 years. I spent the day before graduation alone, walking through the campus I'd called home for 4 years, the library where I'd studied until closing time, the coffee shop where I'd worked morning shifts, the bench by the river where I'd written most of my novel. As I sat there, watching the sunset reflect on the water, I realized something. I had never needed their money. I had never needed their approval. What I needed was to believe in myself the way Professor Martinez believed in me. The graduation ceremony was the next day. I pressed my only nice outfit, arranged my honor cords, and practiced my smile in the mirror. Congratulations, I told my reflection. You did this, all by yourself. For the first time, it felt like enough. On graduation day, I sat alone where my family should have been. When they called my name as summa cum laude, I looked at the empty chairs. That's when I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Professor Martinez, my thesis advisor. I'm so proud of you, Amanda. Your manuscript has real potential. She was the only one who gave me a standing ovation when I received my diploma. After the ceremony, she hugged me and said, "Never let anyone diminish your talent, not even your family." It was the first time someone validated what I felt. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't exaggerating. The treatment I received was truly unfair. "Thank you," I whispered, fighting back tears. "For what? Stating the obvious? Your work speaks for itself." She handed me a business card. "My friend at Ashton Publishing wants to meet you next week. Don't you dare downplay your novel." I stared at the card. They actually want to meet me? They do. And more importantly, they want to read your full manuscript. The rush of validation was almost dizzying. I can't believe it. Start believing, Amanda. This is just the beginning. Later, I posted a graduation selfie online. Within minutes, my phone lit up with a text from Thomas. "Cool pic. We're having an awesome time in Florida. Mom says congrats." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked to a nearby restaurant where other graduates celebrated with their families. I sat at the bar, ordered a glass of champagne, and watched parents hugging their children, taking photos, beaming with pride. The bartender slid my champagne across the counter. "Congratulations, grad. This one's on the house." "Thank you." I raised my glass to him. "To new beginnings." He grinned. "To new beginnings." I sipped my champagne, savoring the bittersweet moment. Achievement without witnesses, success without celebration, freedom without support. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. "Hope you're having a nice graduation dinner. We're at the Ritz-Carlton in Miami. Thomas made some excellent connections today." I ordered another champagne. By the time I returned to my apartment, I had 3 missed calls from my father. No voicemails. Typical. If it was important enough, he'd have his assistant call me. I kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto my bed, diploma case still clutched in my hand. 4 years of sacrifice culminating in this moment of solitary triumph. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of celebrations across campus. I opened my laptop and stared at the manuscript I'd been revising based on Professor Martinez's feedback. "A World Where Books Come Alive," read the title page. My story, my dream, my escape. I scrolled through the pages, remembering how my mother had torn apart the first version, how she'd laughed at my ambition, how she'd chosen Thomas's mediocrity over my excellence, time and again. For 3 hours, I sat there, contemplating what to do next. The publishing meeting was scheduled for Wednesday. My lease ended Friday. My student loans would come due in 6 months. I could stay in Boston, find a full-time job at the bookstore, keep writing on the side, keep trying to please a family that would never see my worth. Or I could leave, start fresh, become someone new. I laughed at the absurdity of it all. "What would you do?" I asked my protagonist, as if she could answer from the pages. What would Eliza do when her family couldn't see the magic she controlled? In my story, Eliza eventually saved them all, proving her worth through sacrifice and heroism. But this wasn't fiction. There would be no dramatic rescue, no moment of clarity where my parents suddenly recognized my value, no tearful reconciliation where Thomas admitted his privilege. Real life didn't work that way. I closed my laptop and walked to the window. The campus was lit up with celebration lights, families taking photos by the fountain, friends hugging goodbye. "So what now, Amanda?" I asked myself. "What do you really want?" The answer came with surprising clarity. I wanted to succeed, not to prove anything to my family, but to prove it to myself. I wanted to write stories that mattered, that touched people, that lived beyond me. I wanted to stop waiting for approval and start demanding it from the world. If you've ever had to choose between pleasing others and following your own path, drop a heart in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone on this journey. That night, sitting in my small apartment, I read again the manuscript I had printed to show my parents. A story about a girl who discovers a magical world inside ancient books. I remembered my mother's laugh when I mentioned I wanted to be a writer. A writer? And how many writers do you know who don't starve to death? I thought of all the times I swallowed my words, accepted being the second choice, convinced myself that maybe they were right. For 3 hours, I sat there, contemplating what to do next. The publishing meeting was 3 days away. My apartment lease ended in a week. The crossroads couldn't be clearer if it had been painted in neon. I opened my laptop and began researching apartments in New York City. If Ashton Publishing was interested in my book, I'd need to be closer to their offices. The prices made me wince, but I found a listing for a roommate wanted in Queens. $850 a month, utilities included. Still steep on my barista salary, but doable if I picked up extra shifts. You're actually considering this, I said to myself. Half question, half statement of disbelief. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Amanda? This is Sarah Jenkins from Ashton Publishing. I hope it's not too late to call. I straightened up. No, not at all. I've just finished your manuscript, and I couldn't wait until our meeting. This is extraordinary work. The scene where Eliza discovers the living library? Breathtaking. My heart pounded. Thank you. That means a lot. I want to move our meeting up. Can you come to New York tomorrow? We'd like to discuss representation. Representation? I repeated, dumbfounded. Yes, we believe your novel has significant potential. I've already shared it with our acquisitions team. I glanced around my half-packed apartment. I can be there, tomorrow. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I started laughing, then crying, then both at once. I booked a bus ticket to New York leaving at 6 a.m., packed one suitcase with essentials, emailed my landlord about breaking my lease early, called my bookstore manager and quit. It was reckless, impulsive, completely unlike the careful, people-pleasing Amanda I'd been my entire life. It felt magnificent. I slept for exactly 3 hours before my alarm blared, showered, dressed in my one professional outfit, and headed to the bus station while the sky was still dark. On the bus, I watched Boston disappear behind me, the city where I'd struggled, studied, and survived on my own. I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and relief as the skyline faded into the distance. 5 hours later, I stepped off the bus at Port Authority, the noise and energy of New York City enveloping me immediately. I had 2 hours before my meeting, just enough time to find the publishing house, calm my nerves, and review my notes. Ashton Publishing occupied 3 floors of a sleek building in Midtown. The elevator ride to the 17th floor gave me just enough time to have a complete panic attack and then pull myself together. The receptionist smiled as I approached. You must be Amanda Preston. Sarah is expecting you. Sarah Jenkins was nothing like I'd imagined. Younger than Professor Martinez, with bright blue hair and tattoos visible beneath her professional blazer. Her office walls were covered with book covers and framed reviews. Amanda, so glad you could come on short notice. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Coffee? Please. Black. She grinned. A writer through and through. So let's talk about your book. For the next hour, we discussed my novel, my influences, my vision for the series. Not once did she ask why I wanted to write instead of pursuing a real career. Not once did she suggest my dreams were unrealistic. Instead, she outlined marketing strategies, talked about cover designs, mentioned potential audiobook narrators. We'd like to offer you a contract, she said finally, sliding a folder across the desk. 3-book deal to complete the trilogy you outlined. The advance is modest, $15,000 per book, but we believe in your work, Amanda. I stared at the contract, unable to speak. You don't have to sign today, Sarah added quickly. Take it home, review it. Have a lawyer look it over. I thought of my father, the lawyer who couldn't be bothered to attend my graduation. I'll review it myself, thank you. When I left Ashton Publishing 2 hours later, I had a signed contract in my bag, an advance check being processed, and a completely different future ahead of me. I found a bench in Bryant Park and called Professor Martinez. They offered me a contract, I said when she answered. 3-book deal for my Realms trilogy. Her delighted laugh filled my ear. Of course they did. Your work is exceptional, Amanda. I'm so proud of you. I don't know what to do next, I admitted. I just signed away my future on an impulse. You signed toward your future, she corrected. There's a difference. I need to find an apartment, a job until the advance comes through. Breathe, Amanda, one step at a time. New York has plenty of coffee shops, and I have a former student who needs a roommate in Astoria. Let me make a call. By sunset, I had a room in Astoria secured and a lead on a barista position near the publishing house. I spent my first night in New York on my new roommate's couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should call my parents. I didn't. Instead, I drafted an email to my mother. I've signed a 3-book deal with Ashton Publishing. My dream, the one you called a pathetic joke, is now my career. I've moved to New York. Don't try to contact me. I didn't send it. Not yet. Some victories deserve to be savored in silence first. The next morning, I made 3 decisions that changed my life. First, I signed the 3-book deal with Ashton to publish my Realms Between Pages trilogy. Second, I accepted a job as a barista near the publishing house in New York, 2,000 miles away from my family. And third, I blocked my parents' numbers on my phone. It wasn't easy. I cried while packing my things. But for the first time, I chose myself. Before leaving, I sent an email to my mother. Thank you for showing me exactly the kind of person I don't want to become. Don't worry about looking for me. I'll be busy turning my joke into reality. The tiny studio apartment in Astoria became my sanctuary. 600 square feet of freedom. The rent consumed most of my barista salary, but I didn't care. Every morning, I took the N train to Manhattan, worked my shifts at the coffee shop, and wrote during breaks and evenings. My phone remained silent. No calls from my mother asking where I'd gone, no texts from my father demanding explanations. Not even Thomas reached out to see if I was okay. It was as if I'd never existed. The rejection stung, but it also confirmed what I'd always suspected. I was an afterthought in my own family. You seem distracted today, noted my shift manager, Elena, about a month after my move. Everything okay? I looked up from the latte I was making. Just tired, still adjusting to city life. She studied me while wiping down the counter. This wouldn't have anything to do with the novel pages I saw you scribbling during your break yesterday, would it? I froze. I wasn't neglecting my work, I swear. I only write on breaks. Elena laughed. Amanda, half our baristas are working on creative projects. It's practically a job requirement. She leaned forward. Is it any good? I think so, I admitted. I already signed with a publisher. I'm working on final revisions. Her eyes widened. No way. That's amazing. Most of us are still dreaming of that day. For the next 9 months, I fell into a rhythm. Morning shifts at the coffee shop, afternoons at the publishing house for meetings, evenings writing in my tiny apartment. I finished the revisions on my first book and dove into the second of my trilogy. The advance money helped ease my financial strain, but New York was expensive. I kept the barista job, added some freelance copywriting on the side, and lived frugally. When my debut novel, Realms Between Pages, finally hit shelves, there was little fanfare. A small display at a few bookstores, a modest release party where most attendees were publishing staff and fellow baristas. But then something unexpected happened. People started reading it, and they couldn't stop. Word spread through book blogs. Social media posts with readers holding my book popped up daily. Book clubs added it to their lists. 3 months after release, my editor called. Amanda, we need to talk. Your sales numbers are extraordinary. What do you mean? First print run sold out in 6 weeks. Second print run is almost gone. The publisher is rushing a third with double the copies. This doesn't happen with debut novels. I sat down, unable to process her words. Why? What's happening? Your book is connecting. People are falling in love with your world, your characters. There's already fan art circulating online. That night, I searched my name on social media and found thousands of posts about my book. Readers claiming they couldn't put it down, teachers adding it to their classroom libraries, book influencers creating aesthetic photos with quotes from my story. 6 months after publication, Realms Between Pages hit the New York Times bestseller list. 8 months in, translation rights sold to 12 countries. By the time my second book was ready, there was genuine anticipation in the literary world. The sequel, Realms Beyond Boundaries, debuted at number 3 on the bestseller list. The third installment, Realms Awakened, at number 1. I quit my barista job, moved to a better apartment, started receiving fan mail by the bagful. It happened so fast it felt surreal. One day, I was a barista with a newly published book. The next, I was fielding calls about film rights and merchandise licensing. Your trilogy has struck a chord, my agent explained. The theme of someone discovering magic within themselves when no one else believes in them? It's universal. I thought about my mother tearing up my manuscript, about my father's indifference, about all those years of fighting for recognition. I'd written my own story, transformed into fantasy, and the world had embraced it. 2 years after moving to New York, I sat in a sleek conference room while film producers pitched their vision for adapting my trilogy. The numbers they mentioned made me dizzy. 7 figures, merchandising rights, soundtrack options. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. Today, a room full of powerful people fought over who gets to bring my pathetic joke to the screen. Funny how things turn out. After the trilogy's success, I started work on a completely different novel, a contemporary story about family dynamics and finding one's voice. My publisher offered another contract immediately, eager to capitalize on my name recognition. I thought about reaching out to my family then, sharing my success, proving I'd been right all along. But I realized I no longer needed their validation. My readers had given me something far more valuable. They believed in my worlds, my words, my worth, and that was enough. What do you think will happen when Amanda's family finally realizes her success? Let me know your predictions in the comments. 8 months after completing my trilogy, I received an email from my new publisher. They wanted to fast-track my standalone novel, seeing the momentum my name now carried in the literary world. The advance was substantial, triple what I'd received for my first book. That night, after signing the contract, my phone rang. It was my mother, using my father's phone. "Amanda, your brother is having trouble in law school. He needs help with some subjects. You were always good at writing." I took a deep breath before answering. "Mom, I just signed my 4th book contract. My new novel will be published next year." Silence on the other end. Then, "That's good, dear. But about your brother?" I interrupted. "No, Mom, I won't help. Thomas has $87,000 reasons to hire a tutor." The publishing process for my new book moved with unprecedented speed. My name now carried weight in the industry. Bookstores pre-ordered in massive quantities. Foreign rights sold before the manuscript was even complete. Meanwhile, the calls from my mother increased. Always from my father's phone since I'd blocked her number. Always about Thomas. "He's failing contract law. He can't find good study partners. His professor is unfair." Never, "How are you, Amanda?" Or, "Tell me about your books." After the 3rd call, I stopped answering. Let them go to voicemail, deleted without listening. My focus needed to be on my career now, not on rescuing Thomas from his own mediocrity. "Your new book needs fresh author photos for the jacket," my publicist said one afternoon. "The photographer wants to shoot in Central Park next Tuesday." I'd become more comfortable with the public aspects of authorship by now. The transition from invisible writer to recognizable author had happened gradually with each book's success. My words had my face attached to them. People sometimes recognized me in coffee shops or bookstores. My mother might see. The thought no longer terrified me. The photo session was enjoyable this time. I'd grown into my public persona. The photographer captured something different now. Confidence. The set of my jaw, the steadiness of my gaze. I looked like someone who knew her own worth. When my author copies arrived 3 months later, I ran my fingers over my face on the back cover, then over my name embossed on the spine. Voices in the Echo Chamber, by Amanda Preston. A story about finding one's authentic voice amid family pressure, written by a woman who had lived that journey. I sent signed copies to Professor Martinez and my former bookstore manager, Eleanor. I didn't send one to my parents. 2 weeks before my publication date, I received an email from my father, the first direct communication from him in over a year. "Amanda, your mother mentioned you have another book coming out. Congratulations. I've been meaning to call, but the Harrison case has consumed all my time. Thomas is struggling with his finals and could use your guidance on his papers. Perhaps you could call him? Dad." No mention of wanting to read my book. No questions about my life in New York. Just another request to rescue Thomas. I didn't respond. My publication day arrived with significant fanfare this time. Features in major newspapers. A prominent display at every Barnes & Noble nationwide. A launch party at a trendy Manhattan bookstore where hundreds of readers lined up for signatures. Seeing people purchase my book, not just 1 or 2, but dozens, hundreds, was still indescribable. I signed books for 3 hours straight, chatting briefly with each reader, amazed that strangers connected with my words. "Your trilogy got me through my parents' divorce," one young woman told me. "This new book? It's like you wrote my life. Keep writing your own story," I told her, on and off the page. The following week, my phone rang. My father's number, but Thomas's voice when I answered. "Amanda, don't hang up." I should have, but curiosity won out. "What do you want, Thomas?" "I saw your book at the campus bookstore. It looks really good." "You saw it or you read it?" "I bought it," he admitted. "Haven't had time to read it yet, but I will. Law school is killing me. That tends to happen when you don't study." He laughed, the same carefree sound I remembered. "Yeah, well, not all of us are naturally smart like you." "It's not about being smart, Thomas. It's about working hard." Silence. Then, "Mom won't admit it, but she's impressed. I saw her looking up your books online. I'm not interested in her approval anymore. She keeps the newspaper article about you in her desk drawer. I found it when I was looking for stamps. I hadn't expected that." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I miss you, sis. And I'm failing law school and Dad's disappointed and Mom's pretending everything's fine. And the whole house feels wrong without you being judgmental in the corner." Despite everything, I laughed. "I wasn't judgmental. You totally were. With your books and your perfect grades and your disapproving eyebrow thing. For a moment, it felt like before. Before the torn manuscript. Before the stolen education money. Before I realized how conditional my family's love was. Then Thomas said, "So I have this paper due Monday and you're so good with words." And reality crashed back. "No, Thomas. Come on, Amanda, I'm drowning here. Then learn to swim. Or hire a tutor with that $87,000. You're never going to let that go, are you?" Not until you earn your own way, like I had to. He sighed dramatically. Fine, be that way. But at least talk to Mom. She's impossible lately. Her problems aren't mine anymore. But we're family, he protested. Family supports each other, I said quietly. Family shows up for graduations. Family doesn't tear up someone's dreams. After hanging up, I blocked Thomas's number too. 2 days later, I received my first royalty statement for the new book. It had sold 32,417 copies in its first week. Bestseller territory for a literary novel. Respectable enough that my publisher immediately requested a meeting to discuss my next project. Respectable enough that I could now afford an apartment with a view of Central Park. Respectable enough to prove that my dreams weren't a joke after all. My new book was published with significant publicity, and the reviews were overwhelmingly positive. I sold translation rights in 20 countries. I started working on my next standalone novel. That's when I received a Christmas card from my family. A photo of everyone smiling, including Thomas with his new Audi. On the back, my mother wrote, "We miss you. When are you going to get over this phase and come home?" As if I were having a teenage tantrum, not building a career. I returned the card with a copy of my book and a note. This isn't a phase, it's my life. The months after my book's release passed in a whirlwind of interviews, book signings, and literary festivals. My growing fan base sent enthusiastic messages through social media. Book clubs across the country selected my work for their monthly reads. Schools and universities invited me to speak to their students. I said yes to everything, marveling at how these strangers showed more interest in my work than my family ever had. My next novel took shape quickly, the story flowing confidently now, unburdened by doubt. The protagonist, a young journalist uncovering family secrets, growing into her strength, just as I was growing into mine. When my editor requested the first half of the manuscript, I delivered it 3 weeks early. "This is brilliant," she said during our check-in call. "The confidence in your voice is palpable. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." What I was doing was living entirely for myself for the first time, making choices based on my desires, not on the hope of earning approval. In April, an email arrived from a literary festival in Boston. They wanted me to be a featured speaker on a panel about innovative fiction. The timing aligned perfectly with the paperback release of my last novel. I stared at the invitation for a long time. Boston, my former home, just miles from my parents' house. I accepted. It was time to reclaim that territory as my own. The week before the festival, I received another email. From my mother this time, sent to my professional address listed on my website. "Amanda, we've heard you'll be in Boston next weekend for a book event. Your father and I would like to see you. Perhaps dinner on Saturday? Mom." No mention of my success. No acknowledgement of the torn manuscript or the stolen education money. Just an expectation that I would agree, as I always had before. I didn't respond. The festival was held at Boston University, my alma mater. Walking across the campus again brought a strange mixture of nostalgia and triumph. Here was the library where I'd studied late into the night. Here was the coffee shop where I'd worked morning shifts. Here was the bench where Professor Martinez had first told me my writing showed promise. And here I was now, with my name on multiple best-selling books, invited to speak as an authority. My panel was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Breaking Boundaries, Innovation in Contemporary Fiction. 3 other acclaimed authors and me, discussing our craft. The moderator asked about our greatest challenges. One author mentioned time management. Another spoke about imposter syndrome. The third discussed the difficulty of finding an agent. When my turn came, I took a deep breath. My greatest challenge was believing in myself when no one else did, especially my family. The room grew quiet. My mother tore up my first manuscript and called my dream a pathetic joke. My father couldn't be bothered to attend my college graduation. My brother received the money that was meant for my education. I paused, conscious of how personal this had become. But those experiences taught me that external validation isn't necessary for success. Sometimes the people closest to us are the least equipped to recognize our potential. After the panel, a line formed of attendees wanting their books signed. I signed copy after copy, chatting briefly with each reader, still amazed that strangers connected with my words. The line dwindled until just one person remained, my mother. She stood clutching my latest book, the hardcover edition, its pages clearly read many times. Her hands trembled slightly. "Hello, Amanda." I kept my expression neutral. "Mother, I'm surprised to see you here. You didn't answer my email." "I've been busy." She nodded, glancing around at the festival crowd. "Your panel was illuminating." "I imagine it was." She placed my book on the table. "Would you sign it, please?" I opened the cover. She'd filled the margins with notes, underlined passages, dog-eared pages. This wasn't for show. She'd actually read it, studied it even. To whom should I make it out? I asked, my professional voice firmly in place. Her eyes widened slightly. To your mother, of course. I signed, to Joan Preston. May you find magic in unexpected places. Amanda Preston, not Mom, not with love. Just my name, as it appeared on the cover. She took the book back, fingers trailing over my signature. Your father wanted to come, but the Jacobson case is very important. I know. Thomas asked about you. He's taking a break from law school. I heard. Third school's not the charm, I guess. She flinched. He's finding his way. With $87,000 of cushion, I'm sure he'll land softly. She clutched the book tighter. Amanda, I know you're angry. I'm not angry anymore, I interrupted and realized it was true. I'm indifferent. There's a difference. We're still your family. Biology doesn't entitle you to a relationship with me. Her eyes filled with tears. Not the manipulative ones I'd seen before when she wanted something, but genuine ones that made her mascara smudge. I miss you. You miss the idea of me, I corrected. The daughter who would sacrifice everything to please you. She doesn't exist anymore. I stood, gathering my things. The festival staff were beginning to clear the room for the next event. Your book, my mother said suddenly. It's beautiful. The way you write about people finding their own voice. It's like you're speaking directly to me. For the first time, I heard something new in her voice. Something that sounded almost like respect. Thank you, I said, uncertain how to respond to this version of my mother. I was wrong, she whispered. About your writing, about everything. I shouldered my bag. Yes, you were. Can we start over? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. The carefully maintained hair now showing roots. The designer outfit from several seasons ago. The desperation in her eyes. No, I said gently. We can't start over. Too much has happened. But maybe we can start from here. New terms. My terms. She nodded quickly. Anything. I need time and space and respect for my boundaries. Of course. And no more calls about Thomas's schoolwork. A small smile. He dropped out completely last month. Says he wants to open a coffee shop. Despite everything, I laughed. Good for him. As I walked away, she called after me. Your father's reading your books too. He's on chapter 3 of your first novel. I didn't turn around, but I permitted myself a small smile. Not because I needed their approval anymore, but because it felt like poetic justice. They were finally reading my words. And this time, they couldn't tear them apart. 2 years passed. My literary career flourished with each new release. My 5th book, a contemporary novel about family secrets, entered the New York Times bestseller list at number 1. My trilogy had been optioned for a major film adaptation. I moved to an apartment with a view of Central Park. I began receiving letters and emails from readers all over the world. And then, I received an invitation to appear on Tonight with Brady Collins, one of America's most watched talk shows. We talked about my books, about the film being produced, about my journey. Was there ever a moment when you wanted to give up? Asked Brady. I hesitated, then told the story of the torn manuscript. Someone very close to me destroyed my first manuscript when I was 18 years old and said my dream was a joke. That moment made me want to prove they were wrong. The show aired on a Wednesday night. On the anniversary of that fateful day, when my mother tore up my manuscript. At 11:42 p.m., I received a text message from my mother. Saw you on TV. The morning after the Brady Collins show aired, my phone exploded with notifications. Social media followers doubled overnight. My agent called at 7 a.m. with news of international rights sales to 12 new countries. My publisher wanted to move up the release date of my next book to capitalize on the momentum. You're trending, Amanda, my agent said, the excitement in her voice palpable even through the phone. The hashtag, not a joke anymore, is everywhere. I checked Twitter and found thousands of messages from aspiring writers sharing stories of being dismissed, discouraged, told their dreams were unrealistic, each one ending with my hashtag. I'd struck a nerve, not just with my books, but with my story. The clip of me telling Brady about my torn manuscript had gone viral, extracted from the full interview and shared millions of times. In those 2 minutes, I'd become more than an author. I'd become a symbol of resilience. We're getting requests for appearances, my agent continued. Talk shows, podcasts, commencement speeches. The Today Show wants you next week. Good Morning America the week after. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, terrifying. What about the writing? I asked. I have deadlines. We'll protect your writing time, she promised. But Amanda, this is big. This is your moment. My moment. 3 words I'd never expected to hear. That night, I stared out at the Central Park view I'd never dreamed I could afford. Lights twinkling like earthbound stars. The city that had embraced me when my own family wouldn't. My phone lit up with another text from my mother. Your father saw the interview too. He wants to talk to you. For the first time in 3 years, I responded. I'm busy with interviews for the next few weeks. After that, maybe. Her reply came immediately. We'll wait, for as long as it takes. The media whirlwind that followed the Brady Collins appearance was dizzying. Photographers outside my apartment, interview requests flooding my inbox, fan mail delivered in actual sacks. The Today Show appearance led to a segment where viewers shared their own stories of perseverance. Good Morning America surprised me by bringing Professor Martinez on stage. She'd kept my secret all these years, never telling the host that she was the mentor I'd mentioned in previous interviews. We hugged on national television, both of us crying. I told you, she whispered in my ear. I always told you your words mattered. During a book signing in Chicago, a teenage girl approached my table, eyes red from crying. My parents burned my artwork last month, she said, voice shaking. They said art school was a waste of money, but I saw you on Brady Collins, and I applied anyway. I got in with a scholarship. I signed her book. To Emma, who knows her worth. Your art matters. Your dreams matter. You matter. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. That night in my hotel room, I thought about all the parents who dismissed their children's dreams. All the potential extinguished by people who should have been the first to believe. I opened my laptop and began writing a new story. Not fiction this time, but reality. My reality. The full, unvarnished truth about growing up as the unfavored child. About having my dreams mocked and my talent dismissed. About finding strength in rejection. 3 weeks later, I sent the completed manuscript to my editor with a note. This is different from my usual work. It's my story. My truth. I need to tell it. Her response came the same day. This is brilliant, Amanda. Raw and honest and powerful. This is the book you were always meant to write. We fast-tracked the publication. Not a joke, a memoir would be released in 6 months. An unusually quick timeline in publishing. The announcement generated another wave of media attention. More interviews, more appearances, more opportunities to share my message. During a radio interview, the host asked if I'd reconciled with my family. Not yet, I admitted. Some wounds take time to heal. And some never do, the host suggested. Maybe, but I'm open to the possibility of a new relationship. On my terms, not theirs. That evening, my phone rang. My father's number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Hello? Amanda. My father's voice, so formal and distant even now. I saw your interview today. Which one? There were 3. The radio. NPR. Of course he listened to NPR. Intellectual. Respectable. On brand for Robert Preston, Esquire. What did you think? I asked, surprising myself with the question. When had I started caring about his opinion again? I think... He paused, and I heard him take a deep breath. I think I failed you, as a father. The admission stunned me into silence. I was so busy building a career, providing financially, that I missed what was happening in my own home, the favoritism, the discouragement. I should have been there. I should have seen. Yes, I said simply. You should have. Your mother and I, we've been talking about what went wrong, about how to make it right, if that's even possible. I don't know if it is. Neither do we, he admitted. But we'd like to try, if you're willing. I thought about the memoir I'd just written, the pain I'd excavated, the healing I'd begun. I'm coming to Boston next month for a signing, I said finally. We can meet for coffee afterward. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion I'd never heard before. We'll be there. After hanging up, I stared at my phone, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake or taken the first step toward something new. Either way, I was making the choice from a position of strength, not weakness. From success, not need. And that made all the difference. I didn't respond to my mother's text. 3 months later, I was doing a book signing at a bookstore in my hometown as part of the national tour for my new book launch. The line wrapped around the shopping mall. 2 hours wait for an autograph and a photo. That's when I saw her. My mother holding my latest book, the pages clearly well thumbed and marked. When it was her turn, her hands trembled. Hello, I'd like an autograph, please. As if we were strangers. As if she wasn't the woman who had torn my dream to pieces. Who should I make it out to? I asked, keeping my voice professional. To your mother, who is very sorry, she answered, tears in her eyes. The line behind her was enormous. Dozens of people waiting. I signed, to Joan, who will one day understand the power of words. Amanda. She stood there, waiting for something more. The line is long, I said simply, and called the next person. The rest of the signing passed in a blur. I scribbled my name hundreds of times, posed for countless photos, answered the same questions over and over with practiced responses. But my mind kept returning to my mother, the way her hands had trembled, the unfamiliar humility in her voice, the tears that seemed, for once, genuine. After the last reader left, the bookstore manager approached with a small envelope. "Your mother asked me to give you this. She waited until the end, but had to leave for some appointment." I stared at the cream-colored envelope, my name written in my mother's precise handwriting, the same handwriting that had marked up school permission slips, grocery lists, and notes excusing Thomas from homework. "Thank you," I said, slipping it into my bag without opening it. Back in my hotel room, I ordered room service, took a long shower, and answered urgent emails. The envelope sat on the desk, untouched. Finally, around midnight, I opened it. Inside was a check for $87, yours zero, and a note. "This was always yours. I'm sorry it's so late, Mom." I stared at the check, emotions churning. Too little, too late. Perhaps. A meaningful gesture? Maybe. An acknowledgement of wrong? Definitely. I picked up my phone, hesitated, then called the number I'd blocked years ago. "Amanda?" My mother answered on the first ring, sounding wide awake despite the hour. "Is that you? I got your check." "Oh." She sounded disappointed, as if she'd hoped I was calling for another reason. Will you cash it?" I looked at the amount that had once represented my future, my education, my parents' belief in me. Now it represented something else, an attempt at atonement. "No," I said finally. "I don't need it anymore." "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Please take it. Use it for something important. Your next book research. A vacation. Anything. I make more than this on a single foreign rights sale now, Mom." Silence. Then, "I'm proud of you, Amanda. I know that doesn't matter to you anymore, but I am. So proud." The words I'd longed to hear for decades. Now they landed with a strange hollowness. "Thank you," I said, because social conditioning runs deep. "Your father wanted to come to the signing, but he had a court appearance he couldn't reschedule. He's been reading all your books." "Has he?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "Yes, he keeps them on his bedside table. Sometimes I hear him reading passages aloud when he thinks I'm asleep." The image was so unexpected, so at odds with my memories of my father, that I almost laughed. "Amanda, could we meet? Before you leave town? Just for coffee?" I thought about the memoir I was working on, the raw, honest account of my childhood, my family's favoritism, my struggle for recognition, the story I'd kept inside for so long, now being shaped into pages that thousands would read. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning," I said. "Early flight to Chicago." "Oh." The disappointment in her voice was palpable. "Next time, perhaps." "Perhaps." I hung up, still holding the check. After a moment's consideration, I tore it into small pieces and let them flutter into the wastebasket. Some debts couldn't be repaid with money. The Chicago signing was even larger than my hometown event. The success of my memoir had snowballed, each week bringing more media attention and reader response. Film producers had already reached out about adaptation rights. During the Q&A portion, a woman in her 50s raised her hand. "What would you say to parents who discourage their children's creative dreams?" I took a deep breath, thinking of the torn check in a Boston hotel wastebasket. "I would say that every time you dismiss a child's passion, you're tearing something precious, something that may never be repaired." The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "I need to make some phone calls," she murmured, slipping out of her seat. After the event, my publicist handed me a sleek envelope. "Special delivery. Came by courier during the signing." Inside was an invitation to a literary gala in New York the following month. I'd been selected to receive the New Voice Award, given to authors whose work represents the future of American literature. I ran my fingers over the embossed lettering, remembering how I'd once dreamed of such recognition while writing at my makeshift desk in a tiny Boston apartment. They're allowed a short video message from family members, my publicist noted, congratulating you. "Should I reach out to your parents?" I hesitated, thinking of my mother's trembling hands, my father reading my books aloud in the darkness, the torn check. "No," I decided, "but there is someone else." The night of the gala arrived. I wore a midnight blue gown that cost more than 6 months' rent at my first New York apartment. My agent accompanied me, beaming with pride as we walked the red carpet. When they called my name to receive the award, the giant screens displayed a video message from Professor Martinez. "Amanda was always destined for greatness," she said, her familiar face bringing tears to my eyes. Her talent was evident from the first page she shared with me, but what makes her truly exceptional isn't just her gift with words. It's her determination, her resilience, her refusal to let anyone define her worth. I accepted the crystal trophy with shaking hands. thanked the Academy, my publishers, my readers. And then, departing from my prepared speech, I added, "And to those who once told me my dreams were a joke, thank you. You gave me something to prove." The applause was thunderous. Later that night, as my car pulled away from the venue, my phone chimed with a text. Unknown number, but I recognized Thomas's writing style immediately. "Saw you on the live stream. Nice dress. Nicer speech. For what it's worth, I'm sorry too. P.S. Mom and Dad watched together. Mom cried the whole time." I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Some bridges remained burned. Others perhaps could still be built. Not because I needed them anymore, but because I was strong enough now to decide which relationships deserved a second chance. On my terms. Always on my terms. A week later, I agreed to meet my mother for coffee. She brought all my books, each one with annotations in the margins. I read them all. 3 times, she said. "You're talented, Amanda. More talented than I ever imagined." It wasn't enough, but it was a start. I told her about the movie, about the readers' letters, about the life I built on my own. "I'm proud of you," she said. "But I wish you had done all this with our support." I smiled. Me too. But maybe I wouldn't have found my strength if I hadn't had to fight so hard. I asked about my father. "He's busy with an important case," she replied, same as always. I realized some things never change. We didn't become close again like before. Some wounds are too deep. But we found a new kind of relationship, based on respect. At the launch of my 5th book, my mother showed up. Even Thomas, who dropped out of law school to open a coffee shop. "You inspired me to follow my own path," he said. And I realized my greatest victory wasn't proving they were wrong. It was discovering I had been right about myself all along. The cafe Thomas chose for our meeting was in the heart of downtown, trendy and bustling with morning commuters. Not the quiet, intimate setting I would have preferred for our first real conversation in years. But perhaps that was intentional. Public spaces make private meltdowns less likely. I arrived 15 minutes early, secured a corner table, and ordered a simple black coffee. Old habits die hard. I still lived frugally despite my 7-figure bank account. My mother arrived precisely on time, looking both familiar and like a stranger. Her hair was grayer than I remembered, her designer outfit slightly dated. She carried a large tote bag that seemed to be weighing her down. "Amanda," she said my name like she was testing it, unsure of her welcome. I gestured to the chair across from me. "Mom." She sat, placing her bag carefully on the floor beside her. "Thank you for meeting me." "You're welcome." Formal, polite. The way I'd speak to an acquaintance, not a mother. We sat in awkward silence as the barista brought her latte. She wrapped her hands around the mug, seeming to draw strength from its warmth. "I've been following your career," she finally said. "The books, the movie deal, the awards." "I know," Thomas mentioned. She nodded, taking a careful sip. "He's doing well with his coffee shop. Did he tell you?" "No, we haven't spoken directly." "Oh." She looked disappointed. "It's in the University District, Turning Page Cafe, named after your first book." That surprised me. "Really?" "Yes, he's proud of you, Amanda. We all are." I took a slow breath. That would have meant a lot. Years ago. She flinched but nodded. "I deserve that." Another silence, less awkward now, more contemplative. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a stack of books. My books, each one visibly well read, pages marked with colorful tabs, margins filled with notes. "I've read them all, multiple times," she said, pushing them slightly toward me. "You created something magical, Amanda. Worlds I never knew existed inside you." I touched the top book, running my finger along its worn spine. "You never asked what existed inside me. That was the problem." "I know." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was so focused on what I thought you should be that I never saw who you actually were." For the first time, I heard genuine regret in her voice. Not performative remorse, not social obligation, but true understanding of what she'd lost. "What changed?" I asked. "Why now, after all these years?" She looked out the window, gathering her thoughts. "Seeing you on television, hearing other people praise your work. At first, I was just proud in a superficial way. My daughter, the famous author." She paused, taking another sip of her latte. "But then I actually read your books. Really read them. And I saw your soul on those pages, Amanda. The depth of your talent, the way you understand people. Even though I never really understood you." She met my eyes directly, and I realized what I'd thrown away. Not just a relationship with my daughter, but with an extraordinary person I never took the time to know. I felt the familiar sting of tears, but refused to let them fall. It hurt. For so long. I know. And I'm sorry. More sorry than I can express. "Where's Dad in all this?" I asked, changing the subject before emotion overwhelmed me. Her smile turned sad. "Same as always. working, distant. He read your books too, though, keeps them in his office. But he couldn't make time to come today. The Jensen case, she said, the familiar excuse sounding hollow even to her own ears. But he wants to see you, when it's over. I nodded, unsurprised. Some people never change. And Thomas? I asked. How did he go from failed law student to cafe owner? After his third attempt at law school, he finally admitted he was only doing it for your father. The day after he dropped out, he told us he wanted to open a coffee shop. She laughed softly. Robert nearly had a heart attack, I bet. But Thomas stood his ground. Said he'd watched you follow your dream despite everything, and it inspired him. I raised an eyebrow. He said that? He did. Used his portion of the education fund to start the business. She hesitated. The money that should have been shared equally between you. I shrugged. Water under the bridge now. Is it? She asked, studying my face. Really? I've made peace with it, I said honestly. My struggle made me who I am. Would I have become this person with an easy path? I don't know. She nodded slowly. Your new book? The memoir? It's coming out next month? Yes. And it's about us? Your childhood? It's about my journey. You and Dad are part of that story. She took a deep breath. It's honest, I said simply. Not vindictive, but honest. I see. She squared her shoulders. Well, we deserve whatever you wrote. This acceptance, this accountability, was perhaps the most surprising development of all. Would you like to read an advance copy? I offered impulsively. Before it's published? Her eyes widened. You'd let me do that? It seems fair. You should know what's coming. Thank you, she whispered. I'd like that very much. As we finished our coffees, she asked about the movie adaptation, my apartment in New York, my writing routine, normal questions, the kind mothers typically ask daughters, the kind she should have been asking all along. When it was time to leave, she hesitated, then asked, would it be all right if I hugged you? I considered refusing, maintaining the boundary, keeping the distance that had protected me for so long. Instead, I stood and opened my arms. Her embrace was tentative at first, then fierce, as if she feared I might disappear again. I felt her tears against my neck, her whispered, I'm sorry, against my hair. I didn't say, it's okay, because it wasn't. I didn't say, I forgive you, because I wasn't sure I did, not completely, but I hugged her back, acknowledging the possibility of something new growing from the ashes of what had been destroyed. 2 months later, my memoir hit shelves. Not a joke, A Writer's Journey became an instant bestseller, striking a chord with readers who saw their own struggles reflected in my story. The morning of its release, I received a text from Thomas. Just bought your book. Line was out the door at my cafe. People kept asking if I'm that Thomas. Weird being a character in someone else's story. P.S. Your brutal honesty is making me a fortune in coffee sales. I laughed out loud, then surprised myself by responding, glad to help your business. Maybe I'll stop by next time I'm in town. His reply came immediately. Doors always open. Free coffee for life for my famous sister. At the launch party for my memoir, I scanned the crowded room for familiar faces. My agent, my editors, fellow authors, journalists, and, standing somewhat awkwardly near the back, my mother. I'd sent her the advance copy as promised. She'd called after reading it, voice thick with tears, saying only, "It's beautiful, Amanda." And we were so wrong. Now she clutched a published copy, waiting patiently as I signed books and posed for photos. When the line finally dwindled, she approached. "Congratulations," she said, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "It's wonderful to see you celebrated like this." "Thank you for coming," I replied, genuinely glad to see her. "Your father wanted to be here," she began, the familiar excuse ready on her lips. "But the Harrison case," I finished for her, unable to keep the edge from my voice. She surprised me by laughing. "Actually, no. He has a cold. First sick day he's taken in 30 years. He was quite dramatic about it." I smiled despite myself. "Some things never change." "And some things do," she countered, glancing meaningfully around at my success, at our civil conversation. As we stood there, an elderly woman approached, clutching my memoir with trembling hands. "I just wanted to thank you," she told me, eyes brimming with tears. "My daughter and I haven't spoken in 12 years. I read your book in one sitting last night, and I called her this morning. We're meeting for lunch next week." I felt my own eyes fill. "I hope it goes well." "Even if it doesn't," the woman said. "At least we're trying, thanks to you." After she walked away, my mother touched my arm gently. "You've done more than write books, Amanda. You've changed lives. Including ours," I acknowledged. "Yes," she agreed. "Including ours. We didn't become best friends. We didn't erase the past. The wounds were too deep, the history too complex for fairy tale resolutions. But we built something new, a relationship based on who we were now, not who we had been. A connection founded on mutual respect rather than obligation or control. My father eventually emerged from his work long enough to have dinner with me during my next book tour, stilted, formal, but trying in his limited way. Thomas's Cafe became a popular stop on my book tour circuit, our childhood rivalry transforming into adult camaraderie. And my mother, she became my most dedicated reader, first in line at every signing, proudly telling strangers, "My daughter wrote this," words she should have said decades earlier. But I had learned that some journeys take longer than others. At the premiere of the film adaptation of my first novel, I stood on the red carpet, cameras flashing, reporters calling my name. So different from the quiet girl whose dreams had once been torn to pieces. "How does it feel to see your book on the big screen?" a journalist asked. I thought about the long path from that devastating day in my parents' kitchen to this moment of triumph. "It feels like vindication," I said honestly, "but also like grace." Sometimes the people who hurt us most become the catalyst for our greatest growth. Later that night, I received a text from my mother. "We watched the interviews. Your words about growth and grace. Thank you for being bigger than our mistakes." I smiled at the message, then put my phone away to focus on the celebration around me. My celebration, my moment, my life, built word by word, story by story, choice by choice. Not defined by what was taken from me, but by what I had created for myself. If this story resonated with you in any way, make sure to like and subscribe. And remember, your dreams are not a joke. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is believing in yourself when no one else does.